There's been a question on my mind recently about what makes characters like Roger and Stewie so funny. I personally would not ask this question as a viewer, but more on a writer's level. I would ask the question, are they funny? Or are they funny because they go against the norm? When you have a character like Stan, I think it's very important to find another character that kind of opposes them because it keeps the viewers interested. I think it's very tricky because Roger can easily become the annoying character, the one that's always whining, the one that's always doing something in the background. And to some people, he still may be annoying, even though they've set it up this way. However, I think it's a lot easier when you have a character like Stan opposing Roger because it allows us to see Roger in a different kind of light. In my opinion, Roger pushes Stan into being an antagonist for a lot of the episodes, whereas he could have easily been the antagonist. Depending on how you look at it, I think they both can be potential antagonists. This is something that I think writers, people who are more so on the side of the writing instead of actually thinking about the jokes and whether they land or not, I think those people, including myself, can really admire Seth McFarlane's work because he's able to constantly contradict himself. And just the entire writing group, I think that it's all these different opinions being bounced around, and it's never just one solidified opinion as the ending result and being pushed on the audience. Gilmore Girls does this too, and I think that if you keep watching and you really pay attention, you see that even with the arguments that Emily and Lorelai have, you're able to pick certain parts of each argument that sort of make sense, and it's like basically no one is ever completely wrong. Even though, as somebody who personally has known an Emily Gilmore, like, She'd be dead wrong. Okay, I'm sorry. Talking about Gilmore Girls is going to be a much longer and a different video, so I will not be hitting on Gilmore Girls today. I just really wanted to touch on how that's a similar writing technique that is used in both of those shows. But back to the question. Are they actually funny, or are they only funny because of their counterparts? All right, so first up, let's start with Stewie. First of all, Stewie go against the norm because he's a baby who literally has inventions and like talks like a grown-up, and he has a British accent that literally came out of, like, in my personal opinion, nowhere, but I'm not mad about it at the same time. I think that is how he's able to really capture our attention as an audience. If you think about it, they kind of broke some rules here because normally in TV shows, if someone has a baby, the show becomes less interesting. I mean, if you look at any examples in history of like a couple that everybody wanted them to get together so badly and then they end up doing it and then end up having a baby and then their storylines like fade to the background and like other characters finally have a chance to have a main storyline. Why? Because they're tied down by a baby. But Stewie literally defies all rules when it comes to that. Me personally, ironically enough, I feel like having a baby in a TV show with a couple, I think that's literally like the death of a show, which is so funny because, you know, the birth of it. Yeah, okay, you get it. Okay, bye. I think Stewie often gets away with this because his personality itself is so adultified. Stewie is able to execute adult-like activities and behaviors because of his counterpart, Brian. So he uses his counterpart as basically a way to help him achieve the things that he would not be able to do and make it make sense basically without Brian. But even with that being said, I'd like to contradict myself again by saying that Stewie has also proven he can do things without Brian. I've never personally talked to any of the actors or the writers or anybody that's on the show, but I want to say I would like to place my money in saying that, like, they understood very early in season 1 of American Dad that Roger was not going to be able to stand on his own as a character if he was not able to get out of the house. And maybe some people disagree with that, but I'm just saying that I personally feel like I just don't see where it would have gone had he stayed in the house longer than what he did. I'm not going to go on and on about Klaus, but what I will say about Klaus is that I personally feel like Klaus is just what Roger would have been had he not left the house and like learned about disguises and all that. Like, I think without the disguise, I think Roger would have had to depend solely on the other members of the house when they were there just to maintain storylines. Roger not only pushes the storyline forward, but he also has storylines of his own in addition, constantly making the audience question their own belief system. I think that Roger is able to do that in a much different way than Stewie because also Roger is an alien, so he doesn't conform to any specific gender or race or anything, so it allows him to stretch our minds a lot more. What I found most interesting about it is that Roger could be dependent on those characters to a certain extent, but instead he uses characters like Stan, Francine, and Haley to elevate himself and really define himself as a character. So the answer to my question, I would say yes. I would say that they are both funny, without their counterparts, because even when Roger is in public settings without his main counterpart, he still manages to make you laugh. And Stewie as well. Even when Stewie does not have Brian around to constantly be his right-hand man, he's able to use his inventions and his interactions with other minor characters like Herbert the Pervert and Consuela, which still allow him to be funny. So in conclusion, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to do many, many more. So please let me know your thoughts below. Let me know what you think about this. Everybody has a different opinion. Let's all just remember to keep it respectful. All right, bye.